organization that we're all very passionate about, Forgotten Voices International. I'm Dr. Nance McCown, for those of you who don't know me, and I am chair of the Department of Communication, and I also teach most of the PR courses here at Messiah College. With me today are Public Relations majors Senior Shannon Cochran and Junior Brittany Radford, both of whom were students in the Fall 2013 Public Relations Campaign class. Together with a team of about 9 other students, Shannon and Brittany worked with Forgotten Voices as the organization planned and implemented some really new and exciting ways to communicate about its mission and what it does, and as it desired to grow its reach and expand how it can help AIDS orphans in Africa. So today we're going to share a little bit of a case study on Forgotten Voices. We're going to explain how what Forgotten Voices has done over the past few months exemplifies several important communication and public relations theories in motion. And then we're going to share a small bit woven throughout the presentation about some of our campaign team's work with Forgotten Voices this past semester. So Brittany's going to start us off with an introduction to the organization.
So Forgotten Voices is a nonprofit organization founded in 2006 by Messiah alum Ryan Keith. Their mission is to demonstrate the love of Jesus Christ by equipping local churches in Southern Africa to meet the physical and spiritual needs of children orphaned by AIDS in their communities. This is a unique mission and organization that focuses on sustaining local run churches, ministries, and church leaders instead of creating a dependency on foreign aid. As an organization, their focus is to partner with these leaders and children to create lasting benefits. With that being said, their vision is to innovate orphan care through the local church by creating a sustainable, community-based response to the orphan crisis by using a specialized three-pronged model that we will discuss a little later in this discussion. Because of this unique, individualized approach that Forgotten Voices has, they rely heavily on storytelling to help raise awareness and funds for their cause. A similar approach to many other nonprofit organizations, and this is within good reason. Communication scholar Walter Fisher suggests in his narrative paradigm theory that all meaningful communication is a form of storytelling. So the way people interact and connect with each other is through storytelling. Fisher's basic premise is that most people are receptive to the forms of communication that appeals to our reason. This is especially true when they are shaped as stories shaped by our culture, our history, and our character. In other words, all forms of human communication are, at their fundamental core, stories. This theory explains that people experience and understand life as a series of ongoing narratives, much like a short story with conflicts and characters, a climax, and so forth. From the beginning, Ryan Keith has been Forgotten Voices' chief storyteller. As he passionately shares his vision for helping children orphaned by AIDS in Africa, he includes stories of families he's encountered to his many trips to Zimbabwe and Zambia. Throughout those stories, his passion becomes infectious, often leading others wanting to support Forgotten Voices and their cause. Keith and Forgotten Voices has always understood and effectively used Fisher's narrative paradigm. And as he has developed brochures, videos, and websites, they have kept this in mind.
So Forgotten Voices decided that in order to effectively communicate its mission and its purpose and the goals underneath of that mission, that there had to be a level of change in order to reach more kids that were in need. So the first step in this was the organizational rebrand. Forgotten Voices has an amazing story to tell and share with others, but it doesn't need to be collapsed in order for it to be memorable. Forgotten Voices worked with webpage FX and Carlisle to make this happen, and soon its story was portrayed through 3 memorable points. This idea of collapsing the message was to make it more succinct, so that people would walk away from the message knowing exactly who Forgotten Voices is and who it's talking to. These points are focused on storytelling to help people grasp the mission and need in a more tangible way and better explains how Forgotten Voices addresses this need through its innovative approach. So let's watch the video that explains that more.
You love children. We all do. Every single day in Zimbabwe and Zambia alone, 1,000 children become orphaned. That's 14 school buses filled to capacity every day. But there is hope. Over the last 100 years, the global church has prayed that a local church would emerge across Africa. Maybe you did just that when you were a kid. Well, that day has come. In 1900, there were 9 million Christians in Africa. Today, Over 540 million. The church is everywhere in Africa. You see, the African church has changed dramatically. The way the American church partners in orphan care hasn't changed that much. Yet. What if I told you that we could change things? Change the way orphan care is done to help all of us reach far more children, quickly and more effectively. The church is growing faster than the orphan crisis. At Forgotten Voices, we are innovating orphan care through the local church by catalyzing a sustainable, community-based response to the orphan crisis. Let me tell you how. This is Pastor Obert. When the founders of Forgotten Voices visited Zimbabwe in 2005, Obert told us that after 20 years of doing orphan care, outsiders like us had never once asked for his opinion. Not even once. So, we started asking. A lot. We were introduced to an existing network for leadership development. Accredited seminaries in Africa were graduating pastors like Obert. These pastors were leading local churches. These churches were connected with thousands of caregivers who were already caring for more orphan children than we could possibly imagine. Did you know that 75% of Zambian families care for at least one orphan child? Less than 1% of American families do the same. These leaders and communities don't need us to deliver care to their children. Obert and other pastors and volunteers are already doing that. What they need is a more capable partner, an investor to quietly catalyze a sustainable, community-based response. Forgotten Voices is that partner, for them and you. After 8 years of talking with caregivers and pastors like Obert, we have gained these 3 insights. Custom plans. Many of us feel compelled to help orphans and communities in need, but how do we best respond? Forgotten Voices equips carefully selected local pastors like Avi with tools to create a custom plan that meets their community's unique orphan care needs. Every custom plan differs based on the strengths and resource voids for each church and child. These plans form the beginning of our partnerships. Quiet investments. Forgotten Voices then provides an investment once the custom plan is created and approved by community leadership as well as our team. To help encourage local ownership, we invest to a level not exceeding what we believe each community could eventually raise itself to fund orphan care. Whenever possible, children and caregivers who benefit don't know about Forgotten Voices. Their ongoing relationship is with the local church, with leaders like Joffrey and his team, not us. Even with the best intentions, funding from the outside has historically led to a decrease in local volunteerism and tithing. Because of Forgotten Voices' quiet investments, we are seeing our model lead to increases in both. Sustainable income. Every mother wants to provide for her children. Local churches and caregivers are the same. Forgotten Voices works with pastors like Vincent to identify and evaluate income generation plans. After a review process to evaluate proof of concept, we provide an initial investment to launch their income generation ideas. These efforts help church orphan care ministries produce ongoing income to fund their custom plans independent of outside aid. Learning from these local voices has led to an incredible impact. We first partnered with TCZ, a seminary in Zimbabwe. Working with their graduates, including Pastor Obert, the church has engaged hundreds of volunteers with a heart for orphan care. It worked, and together, we helped hundreds of local churches meet the unique, custom needs of 2,000 children without being known as a ministry. Like these children, we were ecstatic. We'd worked together to design a new approach to orphan care. But for this to serve as a broader solution, we needed to try it again. We went to Zambia this time, and a seminary called Tika partnered with us. We helped them build up their existing network of graduates and began funding their plans for orphan care. In Zambia and Zimbabwe, we now directly helped 160 local churches meet the unique needs of 5,000 children. But wait, this is where things get really exciting. Earlier, we mentioned the number of orphans in Africa is growing, but the church is too, and not just Christians in general. Trustworthy, vetted leaders are graduating from accredited seminaries in Africa every year. Leaders who would leverage Africa's growing church to outpace AIDS, but they need you to partner differently. We know of 100 new churches in our existing network just waiting to deliver effective, cost-efficient, and appropriate care to 10,000 more children orphaned by AIDS. We are seeking $1.7 million to reach these children through our innovative approach. Looking beyond, we've identified 7 seminaries that would allow an additional 160,000 children to be reached through this model. The orphan crisis in Africa is growing, but the church is growing faster. Let's all partner differently. This is what we've done with 2 seminaries. Imagine what can happen with the 150 seminaries across Africa. Using our unique model, we all can innovate orphan care through the local church. Though the children benefiting from your support may know nothing about you or me, they will know about the love of God for them. That's effective partnership. Join the innovation at ForgottenVoices.org.
So the combination of this Forgotten Voices video and the cloth message now more effectively tells a story. So in light of the organizational rebrand, Messiah College's public relations campaign team was asked to help launch the rebrand awareness campaign for fall 2013. Our team created a proposal and conducted a situational analysis to see where Forgotten Voices has been and where it seeks to go. In order to create more conversation with Forgotten Voices publics, our team conducted research with other nonprofit organizations that are similar to Forgotten Voices, such as World Vision, Hope International, and others that conducted organizational rebrands themselves. We got a lot of information about how to do that from them. We discovered that it's important to capitalize on what makes Forgotten Voices different, which, as you saw in the video, is its innovative approach to orphan care. But not only this, we discovered that the medium through which we communicate this message was really vital, and it involves Forgotten Voices really knowing their publics and how they want to receive that message. Lastly, we learned that rebrands take a lot of time. One thing that other nonprofit organizations really emphasize the fact that it really takes time to get your audience to grasp onto your message, but if you keep doing it in a way that's very understanding of what your publics want, they will latch onto that message. We accomplished this rebrand through 2 ways, through traditional media and through social media. Our team created several media kit pieces, such as a news release, a social media release, infographic, and many other pieces that we distributed to local and national media corporations. And through social media with Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, Instagram, stuff like that, we pointed people in the direction of the new website and message and allowed them to communicate back and forth with it. We timed each post and tweet in accordance to high traffic hours for social media to make sure we got the best response and that we were having this ongoing conversation. And we realized that it was really vital for organizational rebrands to participate with social media because a lot of Forgotten Voices publics and people in general are using these websites to get more information. But in spite of this, Forgotten Voices has not abandoned the individual stories that have been have affected children. And we recognize that this new strategy is a more effective and efficient way of storytelling that's going to push Forgotten Voices to their new strategy. One of the communication theories that really applies here is Grunig's situational theory of publics that defines that publics can be identified and classified in the context in which they are aware of the problem and what they can do to help or solve that issue. An organization's publics are any groups that are affected or can affect an organizational decision. Like many organizations, Forgotten Voices recognizes that there's a great need to develop these strong relationships in order to build their cause and get it underway. And in light of this theory, it recognizes that it's really important to segment publics in order to best understand how to communicate with them in terms of storytelling and in terms of just understanding their interests and their needs throughout the process. Under this theory, there are 3 types of publics. It's latent, aware, and active, and most people in the active category can move up into activist. Latent publics are those who are not involved and do not recognize that there is a connection or relationship between themselves and the organization, so they have no idea really what it is, and they haven't been pushed to move forward. Aware publics know the organization and they recognize that there is a connection between the two, but there still hasn't been something that's making them act upon that relationship between them. Lastly is active publics who know the group and they are aware of the relationship between themselves and the organization, and they are the ones that are participating in that constant communication. It's the ones that Forgotten Voices has relied on heavily up to this point, which Grunig himself does support. He suggests that organizations should really focus mainly on active publics. However, organizations, and especially nonprofits, need to recognize that they must focus on latent and aware publics in order to identify new supporters and advance their cause forward. And Forgotten Voices has applied this theory to do just that. Currently, Forgotten Voices active publics consist of people who really resonate with the cause. They support it through prayer, financially, and they're the people that are encouraging people within their sphere of influence to do likewise. But many of Forgotten Voices' current supporters, although are very resilient in their long-term support, do not always have the means and the ability to give at a certain level that is needed for Forgotten Voices to continue their cause. So in order for Forgotten Voices to move to the next level of being able to equip these 160 churches that are in Africa and to address the needs of the tens of thousands of children that are affected by the AIDS crisis, Forgotten Voices really needs to identify with its latent and aware publics in order to create this new communication system and build these relationships that's going to push Forgotten Voices further through this new strategy.
In doing so, Forgotten Voices can't forget about its active publics. We have to continue storytelling and strengthening communication with those active publics, because even though they may not have a huge means of income, they are strong supporters and are able to really influence a lot of people, even at lower levels of financial support, who can then spread the word about Forgotten Voices. So the active publics are really important. But beyond that, they also need to use more effective communication with their latent and aware publics. They've targeted specific groups to help them increase the level of investment that's going on, so that then they can carry out their mission in Africa to a greater extent and have a greater reach. So they've targeted late career and early retirement people in particular, because those people are in a position in life where perhaps they've reached a peak of their earning potential, and they also might be at a point where if they've had children, their children are now grown, finishing college, leaving the nest, so to speak, and so as empty nesters, they have more time and also more income that's disposable, so to speak, to help support different causes. So it could be that all along they've resonated with what Forgotten Voices is doing, but they're now at a point in life where they're able to more strongly financially support Forgotten Voices. So that's kind of the demographics of the target audience that Forgotten Voices has targeted now. Our campaign team helped with this portion of Forgotten Voices campaign to rebrand and create stronger awareness by doing some foundational research, I guess I would say. They developed a number of different tactics to do this. The first one was to interview key thought leaders. And so Forgotten Voices provided us with the names of a number of people who have strongly spoken out for Forgotten Voices and who have this investment potential. They're mostly business owners or community thought leaders, and our students did interviews with them to try to find out what is it about Forgotten Voices that resonates with you, and also what do you suggest Forgotten Voices could do to increase the way that it communicates with these different publics and to be able to spread the reach farther. And so these are some of the things that the key thought leaders said to us. They said, we want real stories with hard facts that inspire us, not just stories that tug on our emotions. But we also want to see what's really happening on the ground in Africa. We want to see the difference that you're making. And we want to see that visually, not just through words. So in other words, Forgotten Voices needs to increase the visual storytelling that it does. And for students here at Messiah, that's something that we already are aware of and are trying to help our students learn how to better do. So that will carry out into the future as you learn how to work with organizations too. The key thought leaders also said, we want to know how our contributions are making a difference. In other words, they want to know the return on their investment. These thought leaders and those that are being targeted by Forgotten Voices are able to give upwards of at least $5,000. And in the case of foundations and corporations, many tens upon thousands of dollars. So they want to know what's happening with the money that they are providing, and they want to know that it's not just a one-time thing, but that it's going to support something that can be sustained over time. They want a return on their investment. The thought leaders also said, we want to know how Forgotten Voices has progressed through the years. So they want to know the story of the organization, not just the story of those people that are being helped. And that's important, because understanding how an organization got from where it started to today is going to be a good indicator of how it might be able to continue in the future. They also said, and this was kind of a surprise I think to all of us, we want to know more about finances. We want to know more about how Forgotten Voices is doing as an organization, and also the specific financial needs of the churches in Africa. In other words, investors at this level want to hear real stories about the real needs of people and how their investment can make a real difference, as well as the real story behind all the bottom line needs. So there was a lot of real going on. Our campaign team then made a number of recommendations to Forgotten Voices based on all this research. We suggested, first of all, based on the media kit that the students had prepared, you could take a lot of that material that very succinctly tells the story of Forgotten Voices and translate that and adapt that into an investor relations kit or a donor relations kit. where when Forgotten Voices representatives go and meet with these individuals who have this greater investment potential, they can then communicate effectively and have a succinct, collapsed message that demonstrates exactly how Forgotten Voices is doing what it's doing. So along with the video, which our students, by the way, did not create, that was already created prior to our joining, so we wish we would have, they could also take out the printed materials and other means of storytelling. One thing that we did create was an infographic that kind of collapsed the idea of the three-pronged approach that Forgotten Voices does and put it on it's almost like a mini poster sort of thing. And that very succinctly tells exactly what Forgotten Voices is doing and how it has the potential to reach far greater numbers of children. Those are effective tools for people to use when they are communicating with potential investors. We also suggested that Forgotten Voices use personal connections. People that are investing at this level, $5,000 and above, want a personal connection with the organization. Some of us might sit at a concert and hear about Compassion International or World Vision or one of those, and you hear the text, some code to this number and you can donate $5. That's great. It's an awesome way to support an organization. But investors at a $5,000 level and above, they don't want to text how much they're going to donate. They want a personal connection with the organization so that they can hold that organization accountable and see the return on their investment. And so growing those personal connections is important, but maintaining them is important as well. And once these investors are connected, they want to maintain that connection through a wide means of communication. So personal connection will continue, but emails and other forms of communication, and actually, believe it or not, social media also is a way for these investors to continue to stay connected. So we recommended that Forgotten Voices continue to enhance the way that it uses all these different media to communicate its story and how things are moving along. They also wanted to suggest that Forgotten Voices should continue to grow its media presence in more traditional media as well as online media. So now not the social media side, but the other media side. So whether it's newspapers or magazines or online forums, HuffPost, online things like Relevant Today, or even the online versions of national and international newspapers and other publications, Christianity Today, World Magazine, other kinds of things. These investors read these kinds of publications on a regular basis. And when they read them, they don't just read them for themselves. They read the information they get and they share it with others. And so they actually said to us things like, we don't read this just for us, we read it to pass information on to other people. So if you use this media and continue to tell your story through this media, influencers beyond just these thought leaders that we interviewed will be able to read about you and share about you with others that they can then influence. And that's going to help to spread Forgotten Voices' story and mission even more. So using collapsed narratives and this clear storytelling about its own innovative approach to orphan care, Forgotten Voices can now more effectively demonstrate sustainability as an organization. And it hopes to now successfully target investors with this greater potential for giving. So to kind of recap where we've been today, Forgotten Voices' approach to storytelling has really always been effective. It's a prime example of Fisher's narrative paradigm at work. And by employing Grunig's situational theory of publics to better understand Forgotten Voices publics and their interests and needs, the organization was better able to adopt storytelling to its own innovative approach to orphan care. This has led to new relationships with higher level investors that want to see tangible evidence that an organization's approach to its mission is actually sustainable. So in short, these new strategies are sending Forgotten Voices on its way to reaching its goals and achieving its mission. And it's already working. Back there. Nonprofits that need to understand and effectively use narratives to tell their stories, not just the stories of those they help, but also the story of how they help and what's unique about it is important. Nonprofits also need to understand their publics, how to segment them, and how to build effectively relationships with them through different means of communication. So in the case of Forgotten Voices, using a strategy of narrative storytelling and using this theory of segmenting your publics, along with being able to better target your communication, has equaled sustainability for them. It's combined to produce a sustainable approach to innovative orphan care that's going to ultimately save lives. It's been a real privilege for us to work with this organization over the past 4 months or so, and we're excited to see where they're headed in the future. I know that Ryan Keith has been in touch several times and talked about how they are moving forward and how this new approach and this new way of communicating about what they've been doing all along, but in a more effective way, has really made a difference in garnering foundational grants, things like that, corporations that have philanthropic intentions, as well as a number of increased levels of donations by normal people that are in their target population. And so it's been great to be a part of what they're doing, and we're really excited to see where they head in the future. Mostly, we're really excited to see that what they're doing and our small part in it is actually making a difference in the lives of children in Africa. And we're hoping that, like Ryan Keith, the AIDS orphans crisis could actually be solved, because the growing church in Africa has the means to actually address that to that degree if they have the support from an organization like Forgotten Voices.